Hi again. Today I'm going to show you guys how I make Mandrake babies, just in time for that Harry Potter reunion that I kind of watched on Netflix or YouTube or somewhere. I can't remember. It didn't have a lot to offer, but I guess I'll ride on its coattails anyway. Plus, I've been making these Mandrake babies for a long time and they're really cute. So you start off with a little bit of tin foil. I like to use the tin foil that we actually use for cooking because it gets repurposed that way and you don't just have to throw it away. Plus, it's going to become more expensive as time goes on. So, you start with some fancy marbles and then you put some of that old tin foil on there. I just glue it down so that it doesn't shift too much. If you don't glue it, it really just moves around and it's it's counterproductive. It's just a mess. Now we're going to add the jaw, I guess, and a little bit of beef to the head. Although this one's going to be kind of a little mandrake, a little preemie kind of mandrake. There we go. Very cute. A lot of times the part that I think is going to end up being the forehead ends up being the mouth instead. This is a great example of that. You want to make sure that most of your tin foil is pressed down together. Oh, this is a neat trick. I was really excited to use this hot glue gun because it has 3 different heads that stay warm on a separate platform, and it broke within minutes of using it. So I just went right back to the, $2 or $3 one that you can get from any hobby store, which also worked just fine. I would suggest using a low temperature glue gun if you're going to be molding aluminum, especially if you're a kid and you don't know what you're doing and your parents are letting you do something like this. Definitely don't use a high temperature glue gun because you can burn yourself, and aluminum obviously conducts heat pretty well, so it's painful. Alright, so now we're adding some arms. Obviously you can see what I did here, and then you just wrap it around them like a cozy blanket. And then you beef up their chest in the meantime, and then scoot it around however you want to. I got these little branches from obviously the Goodwill outlet, which is where I get everything. It's where you get all of your flora, and they have silk flowers for days. So don't go to Hobby Lobby, don't go to Michael's, don't go to any of those other stores and pay full price for silk flowers, because you can get all of the great stuff. You can get vintage stuff, all those old plastic flowers they used to sell. Here's the foliage we're using for this. They're just veined, like dark green with white veins in them. And I got a couple different kinds. They look great together. You just want to make sure that they have enough foliage on them so that they don't look bare. And then you just grind some holes into the top of their head, and then you just shove them in like that. Easy. And then you want to make sure that you've got some smaller leaves and a little bit of green down at the, closer to the skull is better, I guess. So bad. And then glue those down, make sure those don't shift around, because the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to be adding some clay. So this stuff, Model Magic that Crayola puts out, I think it's amazing. There's so much texture that you don't even have to work for, especially when it dries, but it's not brittle. It doesn't flake apart very easily. This is me thinking about rolling it out, but every time I try and use a tool that aren't my hands, it just doesn't really go very well. So this is me trying it again. Still not great. Just use your hands. They have everything that they need on them. So you just roll that part out kind of like dough, and then you just start filling in the creases. That color was not there when I first started, but anything that your mat picks up, or anything that you drop on your mat, this stuff will pick up, and you can just use it as free color and free texture. It's very easy. Just pull apart all the extra stuff as you're kind of molding around all of the plants. You also want to make sure that when you're putting all this clay on, that there's no air pockets between your skeletal structure underneath and your skin, I guess, that you're putting around it. And then you want to kind of take a tool. Yeah, don't wear any dangly jewelry while you're trying to do this. Just like a rubber tip molding tool does great. Really, really good work. And if you don't have that, you can use anything. I mean, you could find a stick outside. So this is the part where you really start to develop some expression in your little mandrake. You want to add their little eye slits, and then you can just kind of form around wherever you need to. I'm a minute away. She's pretty happy mandrake. Much happier than the other one that I made. I thought they might be glow in the dark, but I don't think that they are. Those little marbles, they have these weird kind of cataracts almost color to them, which is kind of why I wanted to use them. I was hoping that they would glow in the dark, but they don't. You want to develop some of the mouth, just poke it in there. Oh, it looks like a little rutabaga or something. The stuff takes no time whatsoever to dry, so be sure that you put all your little scraps back in a bag. I forgot to do that and it already started to dry out. Add the nose. It's starting to look a little bit like that turtle. Not turtle. Yeah, it was Turtle Morla from Neverending Story. There she is. I haven't seen that movie in a long time either. Alright, then we're just going to beef up her arms a little bit. Oh, she's looking so cute. Again, this clay is really good when you pinch it and you squeeze it and you move it around and you fold it in on itself. It creates all these really beautiful woody kind of textures. If you were going to make, like a youthful bust of somebody, I wouldn't recommend using this. This is good for like wood texture and extreme wrinkles and the ground texture. It would be great for any of that stuff. It does get dry, but the best way to kind of tackle that, well, I'll show you here at the end. It also adds to itself really nicely. Even if your other clay is already dried, you can still add this stuff wet and it's great. I think it's wonderful, and it gets a bad rep because it's for kids, but it's also really cheap. And again, you can find it at the Goodwill outlet often. I do. They sell them in all of these little packs. Oh, there's her little home. That's going to be her forever home, hopefully. If somebody buys it and then breaks it, she may be replanted. You never know. These terracotta plates are not that sturdy. So here's some of those King Soopers bags that I just like to throw in anytime I can kind of get rid of them or use them to beef something up or just fill some space. I think it's always a good idea. So after she dries, we're going to go into this dark wash. And it just helps to really bring out some of that wrinkly, gross detail that I didn't have to work for almost at all because, like I said, this clay does so much of the legwork. She's not going to dry very dark. She looks much darker like this than she will when she's dry. I don't know. I've just decided that it's a girl because I think that she looks kind of like that other girl Turtle Morla that we talked about. So just kind of let that wash fall into the wrinkles. I'm using Bombay Black Indian ink for this. Really, you can just use anything that's dark. Like you could use a coffee wash if you don't have ink, or you could use a really watered down acrylic. You can use just like anything that you have around the house. You can always find something, even if it's black food coloring or even if it's multiple colored food coloring, so you have to make your own black. If you want to do something and you're limited in your resources, don't let that stop you. Just do it anyway. That's how you learn, and you might figure out something brilliant. So now what I'm adding is coffee grounds, dirt, and Mod Podge. Once it dries, it gives this really pretty dark, sooty look. It just looks like really rich, luscious ground soil where any mandrake would be happy to call home. You want to fill in behind her because you really don't want any of that plastic bag exposed. If you've ever seen one, it's kind of a dead giveaway, and it'll take you right out of the illusion. Now we're going to add some greenery. I have like 3 or 4 different kinds of flocking, and I think this little debris is just, I don't know, some old potpourri that has long since lost its scent. So that makes for great little ground jarbus all over the place. You want to make sure that you're making total contact with the moss to the dirt, especially while it's still wet, so it kind of just hopefully all dries together. This is really loose moss though, so I'm gonna have to do something to kind of cure it and really make sure that it stays in there. Add a couple of stones, couple little river rocks just for flavor. So that's gonna be my pouring medium. All right, next day it's dry, and some of that bag is exposed, although it doesn't really show that much. It can be looked at as ground, but if anybody has ever used it before, you'll know exactly what it is. It's pretty obvious. So you just cover that up with a little bit more of that coffee mixture. I realized that the ink that I'm using is actually from the 40s because I have inherited a lot of art supplies, and a lot of them just still work. They were made great back then, but you can't really find it. It's not really accessible. So Bombay makes a perfectly fine substitute for this Groombach or Indian ink that I don't think you can find anymore. They've changed their formulas. There's probably all kinds of delicious toxic stuff in there. So I wanted to add a little bit of brown wash to everything, and just bring it out a little bit more, make it a little bit woodier instead of so black and white. You want to go really light on these washes too because they are so watery, and because this is a water-based clay, it can kind of start to get sticky again. Just true to form as it looks, it kind of has a texture of marshmallow, even when it's dry. So if you rehydrate it and push it around with your paintbrush too much, it really gets gross. So watch out for that. So this last step is really, really important. And unfortunately, if you are as impatient as I am and you do it while your mandrake is still kind of drying from its last wash, it will get kind of gooey and some of those colors will bleed together. But you'll also notice that the Mod Podge pulls out some of the colors too, so it kind of reinstitutes some highlights once everything is dry. And this is a really important step. You can't skip it. You can wait until everything is dry, but I like to see what happens, with the different inks and the different things that I use, because I never really use the same thing twice, and everything interacts differently all the time. So, once this dries, you'll kind of see it muddies a little bit, but then you can just take a dry brush to it, and then you get even extra texture, and it's just layers of texture for days. So, there it goes. I like to get a little bit in the wood branches too, especially where those seams are, because the seams just take you right out of it. If you can see them that's really close to the face, I don't know, cover them up with some flocking or some moss or something. The label that was lovingly printed out from my wonderful husband, who also does all of my editing. He's incredible. He's my tech wizard, and I couldn't do it without him. We also do horror movie reviews together. I'm going to leave that link in the description below in case any of you guys want to go check them out. They're pretty fun. They are not kid friendly. I should probably just mention that right now. So, pretty much without further ado, here are our glamour shots. As you can see, she looks perfectly natural next to another plant. There's one of her brothers or sisters. I don't know. Well, thank you for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm open to feedback, but I think the comments are shut off, so if you know me, just text me personally and tell me what you thought. And if I need to, maybe eventually I'll make it unsuitable for kids, and then I can turn the comments on. I guess that's how this works. Like I said, I'm new to everything here, so be patient with me, and thank you guys for watching. All right, take care.